how about the start, first of all, for Alabama? Here's what I thought was crazy, Brent. All the way into the fourth quarter, they had 3 carries by running backs. 3 carries total until the fourth quarter. Alabama had a clear mission. We're going to run the football outside on the perimeter, and we are absolutely going to make sure that we stretch Georgia sideline to sideline. And we're going to use Jalen Milroe's athletic ability. And he looked like in the first half that he was kind of in fast forward, and everybody else was in slow motion, and they had everything rolling.
Yeah. I mean, it's one where we talked about it before the game and previewing it, how much speed he has and how it's a gliding speed. And there were times where Georgia was somewhat in position, but there were also things to me where, especially in the first drive, where formationally, things that Alabama had done in the past 3 weeks, but then also stuff that I thought Georgia would be prepared for, they got out formationed to where it was just easy, like jet sweep away from a 3-by-1 trips, like multiple times early in the game, and then for a touchdown later, like stuff where it's like, okay, did you not see this in the first 3 weeks? Because that's what they did.
But I also thought that Alabama did a good job mixing up what they did do in the first week. I mean, first couple weeks, they attacked the middle of the field good. The passing game, ball getting out really, really quickly, getting them out of their hands. I thought Georgia made it really easy on them early. But you know what? It's interesting because Georgia's defense came up with a few critical stops early in that game. But here's another thing that happened. If you went to the other side of the football, Carson Beck did not see what he thought he was going to see, because I think of Carson Beck, and I think what we've talked about before. When you make Carson Beck stop his feet, reset his feet, and go again, he becomes very human. When you see Carson Beck take shots down the field, it becomes problematic sometimes. It's not his best way of attacking the football field. Dude, well, here's what happened. Like, he had to start taking more chances, right? Like, but what Alabama did to start the game to give him problems was it was a 3-man rush. Like, it looked like blitz. It was a 3-man rush. Looked like blitz, 3-man rush. Make him make things happen himself.
Looked like man plays zone behind.
Yes, and the problem was, not only did he make mistakes with 2 INTs, he also gives up the safety. I mean,
yep.
that was as bad of a half we've ever seen him play. He is usually pretty error-free. He doesn't make big plays a lot of times, I think, because he doesn't want to make the big mistake, and he made some big mistakes.
The one interception was as bad as an interception to me, as you'll see. Where
the one over the middle of the field?
Yes, where 11, threw it right at 11. Obviously, if you're thinking from a Georgia fan perspective, positively he came back, he battled and found something. But there was, if you're looking at it from the, I think I saw Orlowski tweet, that was a $30 million night for the QBs. It went one way for one guy and it went the other way for the other guy, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, here's what I take away from Georgia and from Carson Beck. If Carson Beck is willing to let the ball ride like that and take deep shots that are there consistently and let Arian Smith make some plays, he's going to miss some. By the way, the first drive, Arian Smith missed that. He missed that play that, yeah, I mean, he could have changed the game. Like, that was a big deal. The running game was non-existent. Listen, all the Bobo retractors, all the Bobo haters, they came out pass, like throwing the football, trying to be aggressive. Beck had his worst day, rebounded great the second half, chucked the pill. By the way, the fumble was enormous in the second half by him when he was trying to scramble. Yep. But I liked he was willing to run the football. He was willing to make plays. Bama they stayed aggressive, by the way. They didn't get conservative. You know, they were still throwing the football in a 4-minute type situation. And then Ryan freaking Williams.
I'll say we've been talking for 5 minutes. You haven't mentioned 2 yet.
Ryan freaking Williams. Jalen Milroe, star of the first half. Dude's wheels was big, getting the football out of his hands, making Houdini plays, shrugging off a big 300-pound defensive lineman with Christian Miller. And then Ryan Williams, late in the game, you needed a play, contorts his body, catches the ball somehow like this. You know what he does, Brent? What's crazy about him? When he has the ball and he turns, it looks different than everybody else who turns. It looks different than everybody else who moves. Like, he just kind of, yeah. And it's like, which one of y'all kick me? Like, He's so quick, so dynamic, made the big play late in the football game when they had to have it. And that was clutch.
Even on the curl route where he's like, okay, the guy might be right behind me. So I'm going to fake one way and then go and then spin again. Like that's next level natural talent that you just can't teach.
And by the way, you could play the drinking game. Everybody at home, if you want to play the drinking game, every time you hear Ryan Williams, 17 years old, you can play that game if you'd prefer to. The over-under is usually about 4 to 6 that you're going to hear. And he graduated early, and he's just 17 years old.
He should be a senior in high school.
But the running game for Alabama, two takeaways from Alabama. Shocked at the lack of running game outside of Milroe. And if Alabama to play in the future, to continue to play great defense, which I think they're going to play good defense, their lack of pass rush showed up too in the second half. Like, where was it consistently? We're so used to seeing edge guys fly off the edge, make plays, hit quarterbacks, but the game freaking delivered. The game was awesome. It looked like it was going to be really bad. And another huge point about all this, one, I think you found something out about Beck if you're Georgia. He's got to be more aggressive. Hopefully this makes him become more aggressive. Two, that's big for the college football playoffs, because when you throw stinkers up there, people are going to point out, oh, they got the crap kicked out of them. You know, it was an ugly loss, because what you do at the end of the season, you start comparing ugly losses. And what you saw was Georgia fight back. Now, we can definitely argue if they were ready to rock and roll, because they weren't, and they struggled out the gates. But the way they finished, I was curious, Brent, what would you have done? I was curious if they scored to tie it up instead of throwing the interception in the end zone. Were you going for 2, or were you kicking the extra point for 1?
2 all day, every day, going for 2.
I'm not, and I tell you why. I would go for 2 if I thought I had no shot, but I think Georgia was clearly the better team in the second half, and your defense had played so well. That's the only reason I said in my mind, like I was talking with my son, I was like, I would kick it. Normally I would say I stole this game to get back into it, but I felt like Georgia probably felt like they were the better team, down the stretch.